All right, Steeler fans, it's time for the mailbag segment. Let's get right to it. Mark Bergen, he is the host of Believe in Steelers. He said, what's the most important thing for the Steelers to address this offseason? And to my opinion, it's the offensive coordinator. They have to nail the offensive coordinator, and then that coordinator will decide whether Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, or another quarterback is their guy. I think that's paramount. Next from Lori, she's a longtime listener. She said, I don't have a question. Just a big thank you for all the content this season, Jeff. Another long off season begins, so let's make the most out of it. Hashtag Ride or Die Crew. Thank you, Lori. I do appreciate you all for listening and listening to all the podcasts. You all consume so much stuff. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Believer says, thanks for the great staff this year. The great stuff this year. I'm sorry. The great stuff this year from you and the entire SCN and FFSN crew and the rest of the Ride or Die crew. This offseason should be another active and team-changing one. I expect fireworks in free agency and the draft, along with the head coach and offensive coordinator drama. Now, Ride or Die crew polls, that was up there by believers as well. He said, poll number 1, poll of the week, Magic 8 Ball time. You asked the Magic 8 Ball if the Steelers will have the playoff success in the next 3 years. You expect the answer to be? I answered, the reply is hazy, ask later. The next Ride or Die crew poll, he asked, when I think of the 2023 Steelers, I think the season was I answered, some success, some failure. Let's go to Jeff Coons, our buddy up north. He spells his name incorrectly, but that's okay. He said, Jeff, thank you for a great season of content. Which player was your biggest surprise performer this year? One who exceeded what you thought and one who let the team down. I got to be honest, when the Steelers drafted Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin, I did not think this guy was going to be anything other than a special teamer. Boy, did he prove me wrong in a good way. He proved me wrong in a very, very good way. So I'm going to say that Nick Herbig was the one that really outperformed expectations this year. In terms of one who let the team down, I think it could be any of the starting 2 tackles when we're talking about the beginning of the year. Chuks Okorafor, who got benched midway through the year. Dan Moore, who just never really developed the way we thought he would. They were the ones who I thought one of them would be okay enough. Turns out neither of them was okay enough. Let's go to Bredicus. He said, would you rather 1, stick with Kenny, 2, offer Mason a deal, 3, find a starter caliber player, i.e. 2 out of 3 quarterback, 4, Justin Fields, or 5, draft, move up in the draft? So for me, I would say I would rather Kenny's not going anywhere. We'll get that out of it. Let's get that out of the bag right off the bat. He's not going anywhere. I actually wouldn't mind them getting a starter caliber player. The draft is enticing, but again, you want someone that can help you win now. That's different. That is different. So that's probably where I would go. Anton Char said, before the season began a lot, even on Steel Curtain Network, we're saying an appropriate year. We're saying an appropriate year 2 of the rebuild result would be a 10-win and a playoff berth without expecting a playoff win. That is exactly what happened. I know it's disappointing to lose, but if we step back, was this a good year? I would say that if Kenny Pickett was the quarterback all season and showed development and promise, then it would be considered a good year. That didn't happen. The most important position on the team took a step backwards. And now I'm answering questions about what are they going to do at the position this offseason. That's not good. So while this season, especially with the injuries they sustained, could be viewed as a success, I don't think it was necessarily a step in the right direction with the rebuild. They're still in that rebuild, still have 1 year. Maybe they can prove me wrong. We'll see. Tony Larrick says, do you believe our future quarterback is on the roster right now? The future not as in next year, but the future? The answer is no. I don't think he is. Will Caldwell said, picture this scenario. Tomlin doesn't sign an extension, but he hires an offensive coordinator with head coach aspirations. Tomlin and company go all in for this year, meaning possible quarterback 2, and he retires next year. Then this offensive coordinator takes his position for the future. Does this seem plausible? Plausible? Sure. Likely? No. Tomlin, I don't think, is going to coach as a lame duck coach, and that is you have 1 year left, and then you don't know what's going to happen. Will Caldwell says, hey, Jeff, thank you and all SCN for the endless content and interaction on social media. Y'all are the go-to for Steelers-related content every day. Hashtag Ride or Die Crew. Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone else that's given some positive vibes to the SCN crew. I do appreciate it. Chris G, he says, I hope I'm not too late. You're not. Thanks for all you guys do. Great work. That's appreciated. Has Mike Tomlin more so overachieved, getting teams to the playoffs that shouldn't have, or underachieved with losing in the first round? Depends on the team. Depends on the team. You talk about teams with Antoine Blake at cornerback, that's overachieving. You talk about teams like 2017 and you don't win a playoff game that year when you had the Killer Bees, that's underachieving. It just depends. This year, with the injuries they had and the quarterback situation a mess, I'd say this was an overachieving year probably, if I'm being honest. And that's even with losing to the two-win teams in Arizona and New England. Let's go to John J. He asked several questions. Let me see if I can find the other ones. He said Najee's post-game comments were interesting about changes needed involving discipline. Reminded me of a prior SCN convo about lacking that core veteran group from years past to lead the locker room. Can Mike Tomlin empower such change? The players, I see it in Minka, TJ, even Najee. So this kind of ties back in. I mentioned this a while ago, and it was on Steelers Takeaways. And I read the quote, and it was actually from Joe Schobert. Joe Schobert was the one quoted in the book that said that in Pittsburgh, everyone they just leaned on the leaders of the locker room, the veterans, to kind of make sure that, hey, make sure you're in the locker room, make sure you're studying your film. And Mike Tomlin allowed that to continue, and it just doesn't seem to be happening now. So maybe some things need to change. I think he can have it done. John J says one more. I feel this team tricked us into optimism with flashes when in reality it's kind of a rebuild. We knew that. What are 2 or 3 positions you saw from this season you think they can build on? I love what Broderick Jones did. I think he needs to be on the left side. I love what Joey Porter Jr. did. I think this rookie class was phenomenal. Freaking great. Just great. Great rookie class. That's something you can build upon for sure. Let's go. Tyler Wake. He says, sorry, Jeff, have to ask after yesterday, what position is your first priority in the draft? To me, it's center. Center is the number one position priority for me. Maybe inside linebacker, offensive tackle, cornerback. They're definitely in my top 5, but I have center number 1. Greg, can't say his last name. He said, how are we projected $24 million over the cap with a rookie quarterback? All the defensive contracts, any chance we make a clean sweep of the quarterback room and bring in a free agent like Cousins and draft someone? No coordinator is safe, are they? No question here. I know Mike will be back. So first, yes, they're projected over the cap because, well, they still have all the players on the current roster. Those contracts you get players that are going to be cut. You get players that are going to be post-June designations. You have players that are going to restructure their contracts. Don't worry about that number. Clean sweep of the quarterback room, I doubt it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in another name. Is it Mason Rudolph? I don't know. No coordinator safe? I don't think so. We know a new offensive coordinator is coming. It's just a defensive coach. All right, let's go to James. He said, in this order, what is one incredible high you experienced, rock bottom low, and something that completely took you off guard this season with the Steelers? Okay, so one incredible high, I would say, incredible high was probably just getting into the playoffs. Winning against Baltimore, and then Sunday watching the Titans beat the Jaguars was that incredible for me. I was just really excited. The rock bottom low, it wasn't losing to the 2-win teams in 5 days. It was losing to the Colts, the third game. That was the rock bottom low. And then something that took you off guard this season was I didn't see Kenny Pickett taking such a huge step backwards. And some will say, oh, it's Canada, but whatever. It was a step backwards regardless. That's my order. There you go. James asked another one. I want to circle back to a question I asked before. Do you think the consistent mediocrity pushes key players past their breaking point and makes them consider getting out of the organization? I can't help but feel many players' time and talent have been wasted. That's tough because I think some free agents just want to be on a winner. They want to be on a team that's capable of getting into the playoffs. But some teams want to be on a team that's like a front runner. Think about a Kansas City, a Buffalo, San Francisco at this point. So yeah, that's tough. I don't know. I could see it both ways. Let's go to Tom East. Jeff, what are you most excited about for the offseason? What are your summer plans for the family when school is out? Keeping my head up for this team. So I'm excited about the offseason for me, it's a chance to kind of decompress a little bit. not do as many podcasts that I do during the football season. And once the weather starts to turn, I just love golfing. And so I'm going to try and get out as much as I can with the kids. Summer plans, nothing really set in stone just yet. I'm trying to get through the winter, to be honest with you. Let's go to Brian Haynes. What do you think is the biggest problem with the team? Quarterback, coaches, combination? I just don't know what's changed in the last 7 years that we can't win anymore. So I think it is a combination. They don't have the quarterback. Coaching staff isn't as good. So yeah, I think it's a combination. Let's go another one from Brian. Why do the refs hate us? I don't know if they hate us. It just seems like it's a constant. Eric says, which is more important, getting a great OC or finding a good quarterback, draft, or free agency? Both. Yes, that is the answer. They need a good offensive coordinator, and they need to find the quarterback that fits. That's going to be the tough test this offseason. Brian Katz, bagels and bong rips what kinds of things will you miss about Tomlin leading the organization? So first, I think he's still going to lead the organization, but if he doesn't, I've always loved listening to him talk, even in press conferences, the Tomlinisms, the way he answers questions. Sure, he can be a little bit brash at times, and we all saw him walk off after the playoff game. But yeah, I'll probably miss a lot of that stuff because I think he is a good leader of men. It's just whether he's the right fit for the Steelers at this time. Steeler fan 69. Hey, Jeff, Steeler Nation, going to need a few of these. He always gives the dad jokes. Here we go. The other day, my wife asked me to pass her chapstick, but I accidentally passed her a glue stick. That's funny. He said she still isn't talking to me. What did one plate say to the silverware? Dinner's on me. That's hysterical. Love him. Very, very good. Thank you very much for lightening the mood. Let's go to RR, Frosty DeBear. He said, can Tomlin, Minka, and TJ be traded away for draft capital to DC or the Bolts, the Chargers, enter a 2 to 3 year rebuild? By the time the Steelers get it all together, these two players will be past their prime anyway. Load up on the draft or don't and sell out in free agency. While I understand the Minka, TJ, and even the Tomlin trade talk, you have to think that the Steelers are going to try and build something that can win now. And so you think about the draft class they had last year. It's a great draft. If they could have another one of those, that's going to be difficult. But if they could have another good 2 to 3 picks that are starters in year one, you hit a couple free agents, you upgrade those positions, maybe you could win. And maybe you don't have to trade those guys away. Something to consider. Doc M, Southside Doc, is the lack of effort in tackling a knock on coaching or personnel. How do you fix it? Well, it's tough because, Mike Tomlin does have a very physical training camp. They tackle more than most, but the NFLPA restricts how much they can actually hit. So that doesn't help. And I think sometimes it comes down, it's like a 1-2. How bad do you want to? Do you want to tackle? Do you want to get in there, get your nose in there in the cold up in Buffalo? Some guys made a business decision. Let's go to Jackson. If Tomlin steps away from the team, who would you like to see take the reins? What surprise move or moves can you see Omar Khan making this offseason? Surprise moves, I think, will come with cuts and trades. Maybe some players you didn't expect to be gone. If Tomlin steps away, I don't know, like Mike Vrabel comes to mind. I don't have any inside information here on this. It would all just depend on how he leaves. Is it he leaves? Is he traded? Who knows? David Briggs, Jeff, from the fan perspective, when did you think that standard changed from winning and contending for Super Bowls to one expecting just a winning record, where as long as they aren't eliminated going into the last week in the season, it's a success? Was it being T-bowed or Hall & Oates? That's 2017, etc. I think from a fan perspective, the standard is still contending for Super Bowls. The problem is that the team doesn't mirror that based on the talent on the roster. The roster just wasn't, it still isn't a championship caliber roster. There's still work to be done. And when you saw them go against the Bills, you saw the difference between the two. And if you didn't see it, maybe you were watching a different game. Blue Steel said, can you help me understand why the national media can rail for hours that Mike McCarthy should be fired, but if the Steelers fans mention it, maybe it's time for a change. We're all just crazy, unrealistic, and don't know how good we have it. It's a great point. That's a great point. I don't have an answer for it. It's just the way the media is. Can't always trust the national media, so there you go. Tendercat said, Jeff, I've been pretty negative about this team and the organization for a while, and rightfully so. Where would you go now? burn it all the way down. Tomlin says they're not going to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Yet every year, Mike Tomlin's seasons are the same. What do you think of Tomlin walking away from the podium? I watched the video. You can clearly see the question was being asked before he even turned and left. You think he knows a decent portion of the fan base wants him gone? Winning seasons with no results means nothing to me. So I don't burn it down. I don't think this roster is devoid of talent. I think they can build it up. They're in that rebuild mode. They got to figure out the quarterback, but ultimately they got it. I think they can do it. Next, I think Tomlin was not wise to turn and walk away. He is frustrated with the media. He is frustrated with the fan base. He just wants to coach. He wants some support, and he doesn't feel like he's getting it. So for me, I think he should have just stood there and said, I'm not answering that question. Now's not the time or the place, and then left. And instead, he causes this distraction. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so let's go to Bob Rayberg. He said, I think he asked a couple questions here. Yes. Tough end of the season. About Tomlin's press conference, why do you guys continue to not mention Brooke Pryor's name? Although her ESPN articles are okay, her questions and pressers and player media availability are awful. I know she's trying to do her job, but her questions are bad. Yes, they are bad. And we try not to single out many reporters that ask questions in the media. We'll talk about Jerry Dulac, and his always delayed tweets and stuff like that. But no, we just try not to single anybody out because we're not there. We're not asking questions. So it's tough for us to possibly even criticize or think about that. He says, by the way, the name is pronounced Rayberg. You've been getting it right. Thank you very much. Love it when I get the names right. Let's go to Mike Clark. Jeff, I hate to be like this, but with the conspiracies about an NFL agenda and refs controlling outcomes, what is the point of ruining my Sundays? I have to be honest. I get it. I honest to God get it. It has a really bad look to it. Has a really bad look. Conspiracy theories there's always rooted in truth. Know that. M. Dibs, no question. Thanks for entertaining the masses during an up and down season. Thanks for being a part of the masses. We appreciate every single one of you. Austin, why does Tomlin get a free pass on being mediocre? Why does his 17 non-losing seasons afford him the luxury of ignoring his non-winning record in the playoffs? Also, why are his teams never prepared to play? 66-0 to nothing in first quarters of the last 5 playoff games. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did. But I don't. Let's go to Brandon Diaz. Sitting here today, is Mike Tomlin staying or stepping away? I think he's staying. Next, how involved will ownership be this offseason? Hopefully they trust more from the coaches and the front office than the ownership. Let's let the ownership sign the checks. Next, who will be the surprise cut this offseason? Surprise cut? I don't think there's going to be many cuts that would be surprising. Maybe like a James Daniels would be a surprise. I don't think he gets cut, though. Next, I support Mike T so much, but it's getting old defending the winning record. Is change needed? What would that be? I think change is needed. I think that it's more on the offensive side of the football and maybe even on the defensive side. Next from Brandon, how shot is Kenny's confidence after not starting another game after the injury? It's got to be pretty low. And he didn't talk to media. And so they did the locker cleanouts today. He's a captain. He says it's rare that a captain doesn't talk. TJ talked, Cam talked, and he didn't talk to the media. So the next time they'll see him is, I think, OTAs, unless he does like a voluntary interview. So yeah, I would say it's pretty shot. Next, let's go to Najee. Talked about needing more discipline and in-house changes. Is this a shot at the coaches? A little bit. Yeah, it's about holding players accountable. You got to get into the weight room. And you need to check in at this time. It's not on you anymore to do it on your own. We got to hold your hand. We're going to hold your hand. Next, what daily shows still happen in the offseason on SCN? All of them. Nothing changes, man. If you're new to the SCN offseason, you will get Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Let's Ride. Tuesday, Bad Here We Go show. Bad Language will still be there. The Stat Geek on Thursday. The Steelers Fix. What Yin's talking about. All the lineup. It's not going anywhere. We will still be here. And then Brandon Diaz, why is Hartman still not cut? I wish I knew that answer. All right, that does it. You all had a lot of questions. I'm glad I could answer them. We have a lot to discuss, and a lot of news will probably be happening here in the next coming days. So make sure you're staying tuned to the Steel Curtain Network on our audio side, as well as everywhere. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. And, of course, steelcurtainnetwork.com. In the meantime, you know how we finish it out. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. I'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.